Afternoon everybody. Here we have a 1931 Meccano number 2 outfit build. It's the Try Your Strength machine, and it's I suppose it's quite an old-fashioned fairground amusement. The set it's made from is the one that was recently reviewed, perhaps about a month ago, and it was the set that had a bit of family history that we managed to put together in some fashion from the notes that they'd made in the instruction book for, it appeared, Christmas 1931. Those you can see to the side of the model. Now, I didn't manage to find the missing parts for the set, although there wasn't that many, but I did manage to find any in the right livery, i.e. darker green, and for the most part it's just these two pieces for this model. This angle girder, as you can see, it's a different shade of green. That's probably a reprint I've picked up somewhere. And there we have a sort of 1958 to 64 3L 1.5 inch strip. So in other words, I picked green ones even though they wouldn't necessarily be anywhere near the right shade. Of course you could use any just to build the model, and it's not very exciting, I suppose, on modern standards. It's traditional. That's a good word, I suppose, for this. It is very traditional. It does work to a point, and that point is halfway. And I have made some adjustments. I haven't made any real changes from the build yet, although I have tweaked it, but I've only used parts available in the set. Some are easy to see, some are not. What I will do, I'll try and get into those adjustments and builds, but at the end of the video I'll post a still so you can see the model a bit more close up and a bit more detail than you can from this extremely wide angle shot. It's about as wide angle as I can get. So, test your strength machine, or it says try your strength machine in the instructions, same thing. The sort of thing you would have seen, and maybe you still do at traditional fairs. Basically it's the hammer, hit the, I don't know what you call it, button with the hammer and send the, sort of like a puck I suppose, up the channel and try and hit the bell. There's no bell on this one, although I dare say it would make some sort of ping if you could get it up that far. It does have to travel around 2 feet to get there, but there is a bit of a problem. Well, no problem. It is a design flaw really, but that's cruel, to be honest. Basically, any time you are layering Meccano parts, you're going to get thickness changes. And as you can see, I think anyway, from the centre here, just there, the centre join if you like, it's layered here, makes it thicker, and the 1/2 inch pulley, which is your puck that travels up and down, effectively it narrows here the thickness. In other words, there's not as much play, and it can trap the 1/2 inch pulley. 1/2 inch pulley without a boss. The idea is you have to hit this really. Pressing it's no good, and you send the puck up the channel or the track. And of course, it's this point here where it's all layered and thicker, and it can grab it or stop it and send it back down. I've got a couple of ideas for that. One is I'm going to try more adjustments, a drop of oil, maybe just a smear, and failing that, I ain't going to resort to anything too drastic, but it would be coming away from the set. I would use narrow strips in part, like on the front here, although on the front it's going to be pretty obvious, but it would make it a more enjoyable thing to play with. The narrow strips obviously be narrower, they're generally thinner as well, and certainly lighter strips seem to be thinner in construction anyway, but of course they're narrower across anyway as well as that, and hopefully that would give it enough play to get past there. I've also thought about using this at some of the Meccano shows and exhibitions. It's a bit of fun to win prizes. The idea there is to, first thing first, is to get it operating more smoothly, but using narrow 3L strips, or maybe 2L, and labelling them. The idea is you obviously come up with some rules, but you press or hit this operating button here. As you can see there, you should just be able to see, I think, it lifts the puck. Underneath there's sandwiched 5.5 inch strips, and to make sure they don't get distorted, I've actually used some of the fish plates as spacers so they all stay true when you tighten it all up. I don't see the point in creasing or bending any parts unless you really have to, which generally means why I don't make models from books where they've got curved parts, at least not with decent parts. And most of this set is pretty decent, not mint by any means, but pretty decent. But back to this idea. So say up here you've got the labels, and they're lock nutted, or perhaps no lock nuts, so they pivot, and as the puck comes up it pushes them up. Now the idea is, to win the main prize, you have to come all the way to the top marker, which will be probably labelled as Meccano part numbers, say. Something like that. Or sets, that'd be probably the best way. So the top one would be set 10. Now you're not going to win a set 10 of any description, I suppose, although, yeah, I suppose you could win a modern one. They're not too expensive. But the idea is this, it's more about skill than brute force, once we get it working correctly in the centre section, of course. So the idea is you hit there, and how far you go up tells you what set you are. So if you want to get, say, here, set 1, set 5, set 10. Now to win the prize, the idea is you've got to hit set 10 and move the marker. But if the puck goes all the way to the top and hits the top, and I'd probably put something on there to form a bit of a bell so it pings a bit, probably a chimney adapter or something like that. If you hit it, you've gone too far and it goes null and void. So there'd be more skill in than just giving it a wallop down there. So folks, I say there has been a few tweaks, plenty of tweaking of the centre section, but that really comes under adjusting. More required on that, and that may have to change, as I say, to make it a little bit more smooth running and far more enjoyable. I have noticed on a later version than this it's only half the size, which would get round that problem, or half the height I should say. The tweaks involve the, as I've already said really, the fish plates use as spacers on the actuating arm. The rod here is sort of a tweak, although I'll come on to that why you could consider it not really. And I've added a few extra nuts and bolts, but all the parts I've used as extras are from the set, so it's completely possible to do it in this way. So, appreciating that it's awkward to see from this distance on the small details, let's have a closer look. Right folks, starting at the bottom and working our way up I suppose, there's one little improvement to this build that you can do, and all these little tweaks are from parts in the set. Originally, to fix the front section here, these brace girders and the sector plate and everything that goes with it there, onto the base, which is 5.5 inch by 2.5 inch flange plate. Originally you only get one bolt there and one on the other side. Well, that's a one bolt fixing, and thus it can come loose and sort of hinge itself, or you might say unhinge itself. So if it was on a board and then that board was secured to a table, you have 3 angle brackets each side. Here's one of them. There wouldn't be a problem, but for temporary use, shall we say, it is, or it can be. So using parts out the set, and there was just enough bolts in the right style head, I put one there and one the other side. That's probably the best improvement of the lot, but everything is done with set parts, so it's not a failure. Next tweak is the shall we say operating button. Basically you've got a rod here that pushes on one end of the actuating arm or beam, which is underneath. As you push down on that, it lifts the beam, and then if you hit it hard enough, it throws the 1/2 inch no boss pulley up the track. In the instructions though, and this is where this one may not be a tweak, it's not very well labelled. It's not labelled at all in the book. It's not listed as a, or rather the measurement's not listed for the axle that you use there. So it just says use a short axle rod. No length mentioned. So I tried the shortest, far too short, and you didn't get a complete throw of movement in the arm underneath. So I went the next one up, and as you can see now, if I push down on it, there's actually excess, whereas before the bush wheel forming the top was actually coming into contact down here before the arm had made its full throw of movement. So here we have the sandwiched fish plates that are sandwiched between the 5.5 inch strips forming the actuating arm. I'll just drop that slot and bring it up there. You can see there, coming into contact at its full maximum movement of the arm against the flanged sector plate. It drops a lot more than that, but it's a bit stiff. I'm holding it more or less on its side to do this, and as you can see it's handheld. That's just there to stop damage, any bending of the quite decent 5.5 inch strips. And it also broadens the end slightly, as you can see there, where it comes into contact with the 1/2 inch no-boss pulley. And as you can see, some of the paint's coming off the strips just by doing this. But all width there helps a lot, because it does flap around in this shot, top to bottom, side to side. And yes, it could be done a bit better, I dare say, but of course it is only a number 2 outfit. And of course my quite common tweak, where slots are involved, slotted holes, I've used washers. Again from the set. That's about the only place I've really had to use them on here. There are more modern sets, for example the recently shown Empire State, where I've used a lot of extra ones just to protect the plates. And with another of those sets, just to let you know what's coming up, which it will be shortly, the Arc de Triomphe from that same set. I didn't take any spare washers with me, so I built it with what I got, and it did damage one of the flexible plates. So I would recommend you getting a supply of washers and using them where you can in such situations. So there really isn't any point me showing you trying to get it to the top, because you're not going to get there, or very very rarely, and you'll have to give it quite a bit of a wallop. But I'll just show you it in principle. You just press on, and as you can see, the puck, it's fairly easy, just with 2 fingers and a good tap, getting it halfway. But don't like hitting it too hard, but I'll try. Let's see what happens when it gets past the halfway joint, if it does. It's quite difficult to get it up there, to be honest, anyway, although having to do this on the bed is soft, so that's not helping. But you can see the idea behind it, just like you would at a fairground, or used to. Yeah, it's hitting, it's just about hitting. Let's bring that up. Yeah, it's tight there, you see, because of the extra thicknesses of these strips. Because you've got these strips here, the 5 hole strips there, and of course these strips join at the back of those as well, so it's quite thick there. I've thought about using a plastic pulley. I think we'll try a bit more adjustment and a dash of oil in this area. And failing that, we'll look at using narrow strips, just to make it a little bit more, well, exciting is probably pushing it, I suppose. So folks, I'll put a still up so you can see this in a bit more detail overall in a moment. But just to remind you, coming up on the May Day bank holiday, that's the 30th of April, Saturday the 30th of April, Sunday the 1st of May, Monday the 2nd of May, the Telford and Ironbridge Meccano Society Meccano Show at the Ingenuity Museum. That's off Coach Road, Colebrookdale, near Ironbridge, Shropshire, England. Normal museum charges apply. I'll put a link in the description to all this anyway. But we're there for the 3 days. We have currently got around 50-55 6-foot tables booked, especially for the first 2 days. And normally we end up or in previous years, we've ended up with something like 70 tables used, something like that. All sorts of Meccano creations, new, old. The official Meccano Roadshow. We've got members only set, Meccano set auction. That's on the Saturday at around 2 PM in the lecture theatre. You've got to be a member to bid because it's for society funds, but there are restrictions put on how we can fund things by the museum, which means we're quite restricted in how we do things. The exhibition show itself is not charged. You pay to get into the museum basically, and it's an extra, you might say. So if you want to bid for those sets, a couple of nice sets actually. I'll put all the information in the description to that, but you've got to be a member for that. Don't cost a lot, mind, 12 quid. Or if you want to exhibit, again you can find all the information in the description, but it's £1 per day for membership. That's purely for insurance purposes, because we have to have quite a bit of insurance cover to do these things at the museum, which is fair enough, to be honest, this day and age. So come along, it should be a lot of fun. There's the challenge on the Sunday afternoon, which is a relay race. That's open to anybody really. Would be nice if you book in advance so we know what's going on really. And hopefully it'll be a bit of fun. Usually is. No steam, or not much steam this year, because there's no steam shed, which from our point of view it's a bit of a downer, I'll be honest, to me. But there's plenty of other things going on. So check the description. See you again next time.